Good evening, members.
Good evening, Chair.
Thank you. Welcome to this Overview and Scrutiny Committee acting as crime disorder on the 2nd of March. My name is Councillor Michael Helm. Members, we are streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you to speak at the proper time. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of the microphone. Therefore, can I ask that when you're invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when you're finished. Please reference a page or paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers and keep your contributions clear and concise. Apologies for absence. I bet it's Councillor Beale and Councillor Bell. Councillor Brian Beale and Councillor Bell.
That's correct, Chair. Yeah, we've got. That's correct.
Right. The minutes of the last meeting held on the. What's the date?
24th of January.
24th of January. Can be found on pages 9 to wherever. I so move. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Does any member wish to raise a... Councillor Hurd, do you want to raise? No. Okay. Right, any declarations of interest? Councillor Hurd?
Thank you, Chairman. Just to declare that my son is a serving police officer and I'm also a member of the Police and Crime Panel.
Well done. Thank you for that. Public participation. Is there any public participation, please?
No public participation.
Crikey. I'll move on to item 6, the report presented by Spencer Clark.
Thank you, Chair. For those who don't know me, I'm Spencer Clark. I'm the Community Safety Manager at Maldon District. I have circulated a report in advance. So what I intend to do is just go through the salient points of that report, and I'll go through it page by page, if that's okay, Chair.
That's fine.
So on page 1, just informing members of the statutory duties of the partnership, and just to inform that we're in the process of completing what's called our strategic assessment for Maldon. That will be presented to the responsible authorities group on the 23rd of March, which is only in 3 weeks' time. So what we've done is, as per previous years, we've gone through a data review and gone through a crime risk matrix scoring exercise. That was a partnership exercise which included the Chief Inspector sitting next to me this evening. Just to go through the headline priorities, there's not likely to be any major changes from last year, just some changes to the narrative, which is based on current risks. And that aligns with the Police Commissioner's Police and Crime Plan and the Essex Crime Prevention Strategy. We've also been working on some other data, the Operation Minerva data. So I was at Fire HQ on Monday, establishing some areas of risk for Maldon around female victimisation. So it's a new mapping tool we're looking at. So that's another thing which will impact on priorities. So on 3.12 there, you'll see what the proposed priorities will be. One of the major changes around that is what we will have to include is around serious violence, because this new serious violence duty comes in this year. So the statutory detailed guidance for the serious violence duty was released on the 16th of December. But this particular piece of work will be carried out by the Essex Violence and Vulnerability Unit, since they have an analyst. So they'll produce a strategic needs assessment for Essex, but with a Maldon section on it. So that's one of the new duties coming in. So you'll see that the 5 priorities are not changing much from previous years. I think one thing which we've flagged up in a number of meetings, which we do need to do a bit more work around, and I spent a couple of hours at Maldon Fire Station this afternoon around fatal fires and how we can reduce those, because we've had about 3 in Maldon district in the last 18 months or so, and they've all been very similar scenarios. So we will be doing some further work around that. So you'll see under 3.13 how they align with the corporate plan, which has obviously changed in very, very recently, but when this was actually authored. And we have a clear action plan which red, amber, green rates all of the projects being done around that. This was a recommendation from an internal audit in 2020, actually just completed internal audit on community safety, which will be looked at ordnance governance meeting this in a week's time in this very room. So that will be published soon after that. I won't say too much about police performance because Chief Inspector Ballard's going to talk about that in detail, but you'll see that the performance figures for Maldon were circulated in my report, so they were the most up-to-date ones. So I won't say any more around that. Under 3.15, an update on Prevent. As I've mentioned before, I chair the Essex County Prevent Group and report back to the Essex Contest Board and also to Safer Essex. So did that last week. The local counter-terrorism local profile was only released just over a week ago, and there's no real change to the risks to Maldon and Essex really. The current UK threat remains substantial, and we're still doing plenty of work around the Prevent agenda. What we have started doing is doing some more work around upskilling other partners around that. And you also see that the independent advisory group continues to meet as well. And we look at some of the tactics used, like things like talking about community tensions, hate crime and policing interventions such as stop and search. So on that final bit there, you'll see that finally the Shawcross review was published on the 8th of February, and I'm not intending to go through the full details of the Shawcross review tonight. I have put a link in there for any members who are interested. There's about 34 recommendations on how Prevent should be changed, and there's one of the main things is taking away the word vulnerable and using the word susceptible, so people who are susceptible to radicalisation. So, but I won't go into full detail about that tonight, but I'm happy to provide a briefing note to members at another opportunity if you're interested. So forward scanning, you see there up under 3.16. I already spoke about the serious violence duty, where we're doing the work around that. And some of you may be aware that the final Manchester inquest report the full findings was published today. So the protect duty, or which will be known as Martin's Law, will come into force with the draft legislation being available in spring this year. There have been a number of sessions already around that, and officers have already attended those, but we're not going to guess what the legislation will be, although we've got a very good idea. But that will be really about making sure we've got competent persons trained for our spaces. So as a district council, if we're doing events in places like Promenade Park, it'll be sensible to have staff trained to a certain level. Also, you'll see that Safer Essex agreed the Pan-Essex duty, and as I already said about the strategic local needs assessment being done and how that will link with the other areas. And there's also a full review of community safety partnerships, which is being done at the moment as well, which is one of the PFCC's areas. This is something which started last year, but due to changes in government, a number of these projects have sort of slowed up, but I think we'll be seeing them gaining pace again in the coming months. Under 3.2, just an update on what's been happening at the PFCC's office. You'll see that the policing precept has been agreed, and I put a link in there so that members can look at that and see where the increases. So there's been a small increase in the policing precept, but also a small increase in the fire precept as well. There's a link in there with the more detail around that, and you'll see that the funding for this current year will be the same as what we got last year. And we had when I say we had an annual review, Mr. Holmes and myself had an annual review with the PFCC's office to check that everything's in order and going smoothly. So also flagging under 3.23 about the rural crime event. So there's a lot of focus on rural crime. So there's an event at Leomani Tower on the 10th of March. If any people like to attend that. And under 3.2, just flagging up around the policing numbers. But again, I won't say too much in detail about that because I know Chief Inspector Ballard's going to pick that up in his report. 3.24 is about the work of the Violence and Vulnerability Unit. As I say, we do a lot of close work with that unit. I sit on behalf of Essex as the one of the representatives on the operations board, which is chaired by Mr. Prophet, who's the Deputy Chief Constable. And one of the pieces of work we've done recently is to remove the knife amnesty bin from the front of the civic offices. And I see a big sigh of relief by most members here. And we've replaced it at Promenade Park, which is a more appropriate location. It's it's a smaller unit, which is in fact the size of a wheelie bin, because there is a wheelie bin inside it, which makes it a lot easier to empty. And that's emptied a couple of times a year. So that unit has been jointly funded by the Violence and Vulnerability Unit and the Maldon Community Safety Partnership. On to just to 3.3, this is really just an update of what's been going on in terms of this year. We'll be producing an action plan for the coming year going forward. But I think you'll see that we've achieved most of the things we wanted to do in this current year and a little bit more. You'll see that we still treat missing and child exploitation very seriously. I attend the MACE 1 and the MACE 2 meetings, and we have a close working relationship with the schools. And you also see that I've just listed some of the meetings we attend. There's a vast amount of meetings which we attend where we do joint working across the whole partnership. Again, under 3.33, I'm not going to say too much about that because it's in the policing area as such, but just commend the work of the Community Safety Engagement Officer, PC Rosie Smith, who is Maldon's officer, does some really good work in the community, and more importantly, some excellent communications, which is something which I think we've all been looking to improve on in recent years, and I think we're nearly there with that one. And just flagging up some of the hotspots where it's either been antisocial behaviour or drug misuse, drug nuisance, and some of the works we've been doing around that, and flagging again around the Essex fire and rescue work we're doing around fatal fires. And we're also doing the safe, well and secure visits at the end of May, which will be a partnership initiative knocking on lots of doors in Maldon District to promote fire safety and rescue plans in properties. 3.35 flags around Crucial Crew. We opened the booking for Crucial Crew this year. I think we had six schools sign on in the first half day of it being open. So it's obviously a very important intervention for the schools, and we'll be working with Tick Box Productions again, who produce a drama on exploitation and awareness around knife crime and drugs. This has been booked for the 13th to the 15th of June for this coming year, so I said, and we've already got people booked onto it. Just also flagging a vast number of events. I think we got back to following the sort of easing of the pandemic as such, got back to the real community engagement this year, and we tried to get into as many areas as we could, whether it's bike marking, whether it's working with our Crime Stoppers colleagues such as Councillor Huebner over there. We've done plenty of work in the community, working with a variety of partners, and most of the events we've done have been pretty well attended. We've done the senior safety event again at Maldon Stadium, which was well attended. And just lots of joint working going on there. You'll see that the Youth Strategy Group have also put in some work in terms of dramas around the unacceptable drama that went into the schools last year, but in this current year. And you'll see finally there, we also, I've listed just a few of the projects which we do throughout the year. I think we were the first area to do a street week in Essex. That was really well attended, so that was almost like so many different interventions by the police, including I think Councillor Heber and myself had a day in Maldon High Street, didn't we? Which was lots of stuff around that, loads of public engagement. You'll see that TrueCam is really still being done in lots of parishes, and we've in the process of purchasing a new unit for that, so it will improve the capability of what we're doing around traffic enforcement. One of the things we have to do as the district is meet our prevent duty. I do that on behalf of Essex. Last year we scored 3, which means the standards met. 3 is a good score for a unfunded area, because we're not funded by the Home Office to do anything around preventing violent extremism. I went through the scoring process with the Home Office again last week. I think we'll probably score 3 again, although we are scoring 4 in some areas. So one of the big changes, we've now got an Essex situational risk assessment, which looks at the risk to Essex, and more importantly has an action plan to mitigate risks. So that's been complete again for this year. But I won't go into all this in detail, but you'll see that there's plenty going on. I think one of the good areas for Maldon, and I spent a couple of hours with him earlier today, is the tri-service pilot. So Les Davis, who is does so much work in the community. Again, we're arranging that safe, well and secure piece of work with him at the end of May. Just going through this area, lots of community engagement, lots of work with schools, lots of work around interventions with young people, whether it be in healthy relationships, whether it be in exploitation awareness. We even done, and another area we've been doing quite a bit of work in Maldon around is working with the business crime team. So when we've done the street weeks, they were knocking on most of the shop doors in Maldon High Street, and also where we had Op Snowy just before Christmas, where we're based at Tesco's, giving advice around safety and fraud. So that's really quickly in a nutshell, without going into too much detail about what's been going on behalf of the partnership this year, and the conclusion there about the ongoing joint work and how that's been going quite nicely. And I think that when the audit report is published next week, that will summarise that the work of the partnership is going quite well. But say that won't actually be published or seen by the committee until next Thursday. Okay,
right. Thank you very much for that. Any questions, members? Paula?
Yes. Hi, thanks, Spencer. So looking at page 9 and at 3.1.2 of the report, where we've got the priorities, the 5 priorities, something that I did notice, and obviously I've only been a member for a year, and I've looked around this report and the appendices with it. But promoting road safety and challenging irresponsible driving is one of the 5 priorities, and I can't find all that much compared to all the other priorities on that work. And I can see that you've got the reference to TrueCam, which you've just spoken about, and I'm guessing that maybe a crucial crew or something else you talk to young people about driving, but I can't see any figures as to how we're getting on with that. I don't know if I've missed them somewhere, but can you give us any update on the road situation?
Most certainly, Councillor Spenceley. So usually when most partnerships choose their priorities, they choose them on data. One thing which also always flags up for Maldon District is around perceptions. So this priority is really much in there as a result of the perceptions of the public, though who feel quite strongly about road safety. Obviously, there's the data to back that. So as a district council, we do a lot of work around TrueCam, but in addition to that, the police also do a lot of work around that, and I don't want to steal the Chief Inspector's thunder, because I know in part of his slides it addresses some of the work they've been doing around it. Also, when we've done the Street Week, it's not just community engagement, it also is traffic enforcement. The community engagement team do very close work with the rural engagement team, so they'll look at things like waste carriers, licences, etc. And the fire service do an incredible amount of work as well. So in going into schools, giving advice, and also the Safer Essex Roads Partnership. So I think perhaps it's something we could tackle as a subject at a future committee, where we could. This report skims over a lot of the work we do, but doesn't go into the explicit detail of what's done by the whole partnership. And I think what we need to remember is when we're considering the Community Safety Partnership, it's not just Maldon District Council and Essex Police, it's also Essex Fire Service, the Probation Service, Health, so perhaps, and as I always say, and put invitations out to other members of the partnership. Mr. Pipe come along, who's from the Safer Essex Roads Partnership, must have been about a year ago now, and gave a very good presentation on that.
Just to come back. Yes, I think because it is as well a public perception thing, as you say, it would be really good to have Mr. Pipe to come back and actually do another presentation, and to have that, because I think the roads are a big concern for people. It's something that you hear a lot, so that would be really fantastic. And can I sneak a second question in, or do you want to go to everybody else? All right.
Councillor Hurd, then Councillor Morley, and then Councillor Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Spencer, for the report. And I commend actually the amount of work that you're doing. And I'm very, very pleased to see that. I've got a number of questions for Chief Inspector Ballard, but I'll wait until I've had that presentation. Just one point that I wanted to make. You spoke about the rise in the precept, which has been imposed by the Police and Crime Commissioner. I wouldn't say it's a small one. £15 for police and £5 for the fire service on a band D, and that's quite a considerable leap. However, I just wanted to. I'm on page 9 at the moment. The second point is driving down antisocial behaviour in public places, and the figures for Maldon will show a fall of 40% in antisocial behaviour, and that's great news. But if that has now been achieved, I'm wondering if that should still be a priority. Obviously, we're working towards zero, I think, in a perfect world. But I just wondered, and it may be a question for Chief Inspector Ballard, but does nuisance behaviour, fly tipping and neighbour dispute, are they recorded as antisocial behaviour or are they recorded as something else? Because if they are recorded as something else, then antisocial behaviour will fall because they were previously recorded as such. So that's my first question.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, you better do.
I'll leave it for the Chief Inspector to answer his views on antisocial behaviour. From a district council employee, I don't think I've seen any reduction in antisocial behaviour. So these are policing statistics we're looking at here. And as you're probably aware, in the last 3 years, they've been a little bit skewed with the pandemic, whereby things like COVID breaches were sent antisocial behaviour through the roof. I'd like to think by this time next year, those figures should level off somewhat and we'll get a true reflection of what's happening around antisocial behaviour. We as a partnership are still getting the neighbour nuisance. In fact, I haven't got figures in front of me, but where people still have hybrid working and work from home a lot more, they tend to see a lot more and they tend to report a lot more. And from my experience, people are lesser, you know, that sort of trend will continue with people still working from home and people being probably less tolerant with their neighbours. So when they used to be at work 5 days a week, not having those problems going on. And else in terms of fly tipping, I mean, I don't think we've seen any reduction in fly tipping. I think we've probably seen an increase in fly tipping, and it's something which we in the Environment Agency still tackle. I think it might be useful to drill into a bit more detail about antisocial behaviour, but we still see problems in public areas. You've seen the areas which I've highlighted where in some of our villages we still experience. It's places like Tollesbury and Tillingham, Southminster. We still see the youth nuisance in public places. And it's not just a responsibility for the police to deal with that. We have other agencies like our community engagement office. We've got youth workers, you know, who also will go and do outreach in areas where we see hotspots, for example. So I think it would probably be a good idea to do a bit more of an analysis around antisocial behaviour. As a partnership, we still think it should be in there because we still will continue to tackle youth nuisance, because we know that youth nuisance can escalate into other things such as serious violence and things like that. So it's important that we tackle it at source rather than before it gets worse.
Okay, can I just come back on another thing then?
Just the one, please, so we'll move on to other people.
I have got another question, but I mean, shall I ask it now?
Yeah, go on.
Okay, right.
Councillor Morley doesn't mind waiting.
Thank you very much for that response. But the other question that I wanted to know about was how pleased I am that the knife bin has been moved now. I did speak to you beforehand about actually how many weapons were recovered from this Maldon bin. I know that over the county there was 16 tonnes of weapons altogether, but we never did know how much there was from that bin, which is why I was keen to have it moved, because I think that it would be better sited elsewhere rather than right outside the police station, right outside the offices. So do we have any of those local figures at all?
Councillor Hurd, I don't have those figures to hand. I am more than happy to speak to the Police Commissioner's office to see if there is a breakdown of those figures, and particularly when the next visit, which I think will be in June, if they don't record them, if they record just an Essex total, I'll ask if they can break it down per bin for the next one.
Thank you.
I do know that I think when we looked at it last year, it was almost full, the Maldon bin, and we were quite surprised that the number of weapons which were put in there. But I'll see if I can ask that question for future reference.
Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Morley.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yes, thank you for the report. Going back to schools, last time we were here, we were discussing about, I suppose, tackling grassroots like you've been doing, but there was mention that when you go into schools, or the police go into schools, sometimes the attitude of the staff, they get worried about, why are you there and things like that. Do you think that's changing a bit now, or since we last met, or how do you think it's gone?
It's a bit of a tough question, really, because it can be very dependent on schools and the makeup of the areas, and it depends what you're going to be wanting to deliver there. So, as you know, I cover Chelmsford and Maldon. So, in terms of secondary schools, we've got about 14 or 15 that we cover, and I know if I go to certain schools and say I want to talk to you about gangs, they might not be that interested. But if they want to talk, if I go in there and say we're doing some sessions on online safety, they'll bite my hand off for it. So it really does really depend on what area we're looking at. But most schools are. A lot of the areas which we cover now are now in the PHSE curriculum. So things like healthy relationships, the schools have to do something around that now. So last year when we went in with the youth service and done the dramas on unacceptable around unwanted sexual behaviour and misogyny and things like that, they have to tackle that now. So, and I think, one of the things I'd like to do for Maldon this year is perhaps look at doing a strategy around violence against women and girls, which we can then take in and get signed up to as well. So the response we get from primary schools is really good. I think last year, we had almost every primary school sign up to the Crucial Crew. So they either come to a live performance or had a virtual performance. The live performance is much better because the interaction with the young people, they spend 2.5 hours after the actual performance exploring things like, what have you done if you spoke to a trusted adult? What have you done if you spoke to a teacher or a police officer? So the primary schools are very engaging, so normally it's quite good, but it is, they're on. Depends on the subject sometimes, the subject matter.
Thank you.
Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Firstly, I'd just like to sort of echo Councillor Spenceley's point about the promoting of road safety and the challenge of irresponsible driving. That is certainly the major concern in the ward that I represent, which is Wickham, Bishop and Woodham. And indeed, everyone will be, I'm sure, highly relieved to hear that I completed my own speed watch training today, so I'll be joining the fight tomorrow. What I would like to know on that point is that there was a suggestion, I think, in the last report we had that due to the pandemic, etc., that speed watch had, or a number of those teams had fallen away. And be interested to know, whether that's picking up. The second point I'd like to pick up with you is you mentioned fly tipping. I'm sure you may be aware that I think it's at the end of this month, the recycling centres will be requiring you to book in to actually recycle your rubbish, and only one vehicle, I think it's one vehicle per day, will be permitted, or one visit per day will be permitted. Now that is likely to lead to a considerable increase in fly tipping, and I wonder if you've had any sort of plans in place to counter that.
See Councillor Morley.
I'm going to happily pass this to my director, who's got a response for you on that one, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we are aware of this. This is effectively a trial by the County Council. So we have been in contact with the County Council Waste Services and expressed our concerns. They've been running a pilot down in Rayleigh for probably about a year now, and they believe they haven't seen an increase in fly tipping in that area. Obviously, we do monitor fly tips. We've got a contractor that's responsible for clearing them, so we've asked them to take particular attention to what type of materials are being tipped. Also, to compound the issue now in terms of furniture, furniture can't be disposed in the normal way, so that has to be collected especially. And you recall members agreed an extra fee and charge for that. Well, there's a risk that furniture could start to be deposited as well. So we're very much aware of that, and the teams and the community engagement team will be sort of monitoring that with our street scene contractor.
All right. Yeah, come.
That's great news. I'm glad to hear that. But I'm just wondering, I mean, quite often fly tipping sites are used, used again and again. Is there any sort of way that CCTV or something could be used to monitor these sites and hopefully try and prosecute some of the people that's carrying out this work?
Chairman, yes, absolutely. So we use lots of tools out of the box to do that, and the CCTV is one of those. I can assure you that we do follow up, and obviously the evidence is looked. And then a lot of times we obviously do a lot of work, but actually can't track it down. But there are a number of tips that actually do have information that can lead to a follow up, and obviously we will take action. So that is part of the team's activity.
Councillor Spenceley, and then Councillor Hurd.
Thank you, Chair. So I've got a couple of questions. One's a very quick question, which I'll just get, and then I'll go into my other question. On page 11 at 3.2.4, and I noticed, and I hadn't noticed this previously when I'd read through this the first time, but it talks about the joint purchase of jet skis in multiple, and I thought it was only one, so I just wanted to check on that, because I went to the launch of the jointly purchased jet ski in a different capacity, and I just wondered whether that was right or not. So that was just one thought. And then the thing that I really wanted to ask a question on, and I will come back after, as I do have a few questions, as you know, from Councillor Stamp, who really wanted to be here. But my own question is regarding, so it's mentioned throughout the report, and there's an example at page 10 at 3.1.4, and the last part of that paragraph where you say the council's community engagement officers have been doing joint patrols with Essex Police and other agencies during these busy periods. And not being parochial here, but I know that, for example, Heybridge Parish Council is not using the services of the community engagement team anymore. And I do believe that, you may be able to correct me, that that's also applicable now to another parish, or that another parish is considering that. I don't know, this is what I've heard. So with that in mind, I just wanted to be clear about what the position was if we have a town or parish council anywhere disengaged from the community engagement team, what actually happens with regards to those patrols, because they're obviously quite crucial for the local community. So thank you.
I mean, if I perhaps start and then I'll hand back to Spencer. So obviously we operate a community engagement team. The council has a sort of core service that it has here, and we also offer that service out to parishes. But I really want to give an assurance, whether a parish is using those facilities and those services, we still operate in the whole of the Maldon district. So Spencer's team will be looking at the whole of the district. It doesn't matter whether we have an extra arrangement with the community engagement team. So for those parishes that don't choose to use that service, it shouldn't impact on anything to do with antisocial behaviour, policing activity, or work of the community safety partnership. But I don't know, Spencer, you could add anything to that?
Not really. I think you got it in a nutshell, really. The work of the community safety partnership will focus on risk. If there is a big antisocial behaviour problem in Tollsbury, for example, we'd look at putting an intervention in there. We'd do joint patrols like we do with either the police, the youth service, or the trial service pilot officer. No, it's still a pilot, yeah. So yeah, no, that would make no difference at all. In terms of the jet ski question, I think there were two were purchased to cover other areas, not just Maldon. So some of the other districts contributed as well, didn't they, if I recall correctly?
Chairman, yes, we've got a bit of project running, so we have the equipment. So you saw one, absolutely, but there's another. They're obviously used by the river police unit. Yeah.
Fantastic. And there's one, I'll come back with the questions actually from Councillor Stamp, who, as I say, did ask myself and the chair to be here, but has been able to unable to attend, and has sent forward a few questions. So these are Councillor Stamp's questions, not my own. talking about, do you have any funding for town councils? Years ago, Burnham Town Council received some when they bought picnic tables and chairs for the park. Do you have anything like that? And where can lost property be left in towns and villages? Why not? She suggests using local parish and town councils to be a base for it. How often, very specific question, how often do you patrol in Burnham and the Dengie? And there's also a question with regard to whether or not drug dealing is any longer a priority in Burnham. She suspects that it isn't. So I'll put those questions forward on Councillor Stamp's behalf. Thank you.
I think they should refer to the whole district, not just Burnham.
Yes.
So I'm not quite sure I understand the initial one about the funding benches and things. So you know, the community safety partnership will look at funding projects which might have a community safety intervention, such as a knife bin, or perhaps something like a youth shelter is something which would be up for consideration, where we could engage with young people, for example. So you know, I think community safety projects, you know, we fund quite things like merchandise for our events, where, you know, like purse bells and car. Can't remember the name of the boxes. I'm sure Councillor Heaver will remember. To stop your car being stolen. Can't remember. But you know, so things like that. I mean, I think things like a bench in a park probably wouldn't be a community safety type function to fund. With regard to patrols, and in terms of, I won't say anything about policing patrols because the Chief Inspector will pick up on that around that. But you know, in terms of partnership patrols, we still give probably an equal amount of patrolling in all areas across the district. And in terms of the question around drug misuse, is it still a priority? Yes, it most certainly is. I think we've got drug use and drug trafficking within the district. So that will continue to be a priority. But I will let the Chief Inspector report back on that one, since he is the resident expert sitting next to me.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Councillor Hurd, you had one more question, then
Yes,
Councillor.
Sorry to have a second bite of the cherry, Chairman, but I've written copious notes here, and I just missed this one. On page 9, Spencer, could I just take you to that? Again, it's the priorities. The first one says tackling crime and reducing offending, with an emphasis on violent crime, gangs, drug trafficking, etc. What does tackling crime mean? Because how can the community safety tackle crime? It's more of an aspiration than a priority. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what it means, tackling crime. We do, you know, we will use what tactics we need to reduce crime. Perhaps an attempt to reduce crime might be a better way of saying it.
I think it might be, if I may, it might be better to take out tackling crime altogether and just say reduce reoffending by, because I'm not quite sure what the tackling crime means. That's really why I asked it.
By all means, I think what we'll do is we'll put that to the Responsible Authorities Group when it meets in 3 weeks' time, and they can take a view on how the description's done. Reducing reoffending is a statutory duty for all partnerships, so that has to stay in there.
Well, I should perhaps declare an interest. I'm on the Responsible Authorities Group. Right, sorry. Okay, thank you.
I'll take Councillor Beale next, because she hasn't spoken at all this evening.
I suppose instead of tackling crime, we should be dealing with crime, but there you go. The other thing I wanted to mention was the fly tipping. Who do we report that to? Because I know where there's a fly tip, just outside of Goldhanger. You know, the big house on that big S bend? Just after that, where the sign for Goldhanger is, on the other side of Goldhanger, on the entrance to the field, it's been there months.
Chairman, there is an email address for reporting fly tipping, and I think there's a fresh service ticket as well, but I will share that with members of the committee and give you the correct address.
And also the Heybridge Parish Council, although we don't use the Maldon District Community, whatever they call themselves, we've got our own community support officer in Gary Dyer, and he does a lot of good work. Yeah, I can't think of anything else. Fossilisation crept in there.
Did you want to answer that, or is it self?
Yeah, just we're aware of that, and obviously if there's any local initiatives and joint work need to be done, we'll happily do that.
Thank you.
So,
Councillor Morley.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Just a quick one, really, come back on fly tipping again. I think it'd be helpful in future news bulletins, circulars and things that actually the producer of the waste is also liable for prosecution as well. So although the fly tipper's at fault, it is the duty of care to check that their waste is being disposed of. So I think if people actually understood that a bit more, and they might get a bit worried, so. And yes, sofas and mattresses are getting expensive to dispose of, I agree. But I just think, as long as people realise, I don't think they quite realise, but thank you.
Anyone else? Come on, Anne.
The other thing is, we were just talking about can't take furniture and what have you to the civic amenity centre or our side of the street, the dump. Basically, with all of this furniture, I mean, I've seen the prices now of what Maldon District Council charge to take it away. It's pretty horrendous for what it is. It's like per item and whatever, 1 to 3 and 3 to 6. And when it was getting up to like £144 odd or something for about 12 items, I went, oh my God. It was getting a little bit heavy. And I can honestly see that increasing tipping. I mean, you can see any skip. Councillor Morley will tell you there's always a mattress on it.
Richard.
Chairman, yes, unfortunately it does reflect the costs of disposal. Just wanted to pick up on the point regarding about not being able to take sofas to the county recycling sites. You can. So that's one of the places, if you can get it there and you can still take it and they will receive it, the council will still take it away, but it has to levy a charge because it has to be handled and stored in a different way. And that's what the issue is with waste carriers, because they would potentially have to carry it in separate vehicles, not mix it with other. So that's why it's become more difficult and more expensive. But we are fully aware there's a risk, and all we can do is monitor the situation. But this is legislation that's been brought in.
Thanks for that. Anyone else? Is that report noted? Right. We'll move on now to Chief Inspector Paul Ballard. Is that right? Correct? Ballard? Ballard, yes. Ballard, right. I'll hand over to you now.
Good evening, councillors. Thank you, Chair. I will try my best to operate this both over my shoulder and in front of me on a smaller screen. So hopefully I've got my glasses. I've got my glasses on, so we'll go through this. You'll see, hopefully you'll be able to see. So this presentation has been prepared for me by my Community Safety Engagement Officer and also my Town Centre Team Sergeant at the Community Policing Team, with some assistance from the Rural Engagement Team. You'll see some slides at the end. So, councillors, you'll be aware that the the Town Centre Team at Maldon is a relatively new team. It's an uplift team that was brought in following the PFCC's direction around the uplift in town centre teams, and Maldon was one of the teams that was put in place that wasn't there previously. They are relatively new in policing terms. When we go back to some of the established policing models that we have around the county, to being in since October is relatively new. So we are still just seeing the burgeoning effects and impact of them as we move through into this part of the year. That said, I think, and the feedback I've certainly been getting, is that they've got off to a really good start within the district, not just in their engagement, but also the work that they've been conducting. And on this slide, you'll see that there's some examples of some of the work and some of the places that they've been. I won't list them, you're all able to see where they've been, but you can see some very nice pictures. Some of them are the back of people's we try to get the front, but they tend to try and get away from us when we try and take pictures of them when they're walking. But yeah, so you'll see that obviously we are getting into as many areas of the district as we possibly can to be as visible and to increase our engagement as much as we are able within the communities. Additionally, we obviously take opportunities to work closely with partner agencies from other engagement events and offer crime prevention advice and relative materials to those that might need them at various different locations that are prominent within local communities. We also attend local schools and nurseries, as well as other groups that may congregate and meet in order to engage with a wider selection of the community in a diverse and spread out fashion as possible. We also work very much in partnership with Maldon District Council to run bike marking events and 999 days in order to engage with the public. And then we've got a little bit further on the school visits. So the school visits and the engagement with younger members. So each secondary school has an allocated officer, which is in their point of contact in regards to engaging with them. And we also do an awful lot of work with the primary schools and engaging with young people prior to obviously them moving into year 7. I was there. I do apologise. I'll look it up. In regards to enforcement, so obviously there's the engagement and the visibility arm, but we are warranted officers and we have a job to do in regards to enforcing crime and preventing crime. So we also execute and continue to execute a number of warrants and other policing enforcement initiatives in and around the Maldon district in the various areas that we have relevant information and intelligence to support such activity. We regularly use our stop and search powers to tackle violent crime and have seized multiple weapons being carried on the street, and those sort of figures are fed back through the independent advisory group that I know that councillors are aware of. And we've also done a number of initiatives in relation to drink, drug and uninsured drivers as well, which has seen some positive arrests and enforcement. Speed checks. So I know that it's already come up. This is something that I think we are increasing our activity around, particularly in some of the more rural parts and rural villages within the Maldon district. Officers from my team are out in Clarks this morning doing a speed enforcement check. And that was a planned activity that we try and move around the district as much as we're able. And what I would say is that we respond to information that we receive. So we are very much dependent on yourselves and your constituents and the people that live within the communities to tell us where these issues are. Because it is obviously, as you can appreciate, there's a number of roads around the district, and we can't always be in the same, in every place all the time. So thankful to yourselves, as I've had communications from at least some of you in regards to this issue, and also to the community around letting us know where these issues are. Slightly disappointed that it's got one of my officers without a hat on when all the others have, as that's what it should be like. I will feed that back to that officer tomorrow.
The number's on the back.
The number is on the back, yes, indeed. The number is on the back. In addition to that, we're very conscious that, whilst we are the local policing response, we also have a wider police family that we can draw upon that have got significant resources and specialisms. One of those that we particularly utilise and work closely with within the Maldon district is the Rural Engagement Team. They're a team that work out of Boreham, and they work specifically in regards to dealing with well, I was going to say tackling them, but I won't say tackling. Dealing with rural issues and rural crime. And you'll see there's some things on that slide in regards to some of the stuff that they do. So they do have some engagement elements to what they do. There they are looking all very professional in front of a police-marked tractor that's been loaned to us in order to assist in some of the engagement we've done. But actually they really are very effective in dealing with some quite key rural issues in regards to hare coursing, rural road safety, unauthorised encampments and some sort of wildlife and heritage crime as well. In fact, it's not in the slide because it happened so recently, but the Rural Engagement Team, not for the Maldon district, but in a district not too far away, secured the first dog banning order in England and Wales for hare coursing only this last week. It was the very end of last week. So, they really are setting the trend and blazing the trail for others to follow. So that's really, really positive for them. But we do really work closely with them in Maldon, and I'm very appreciative of the support that they provide to us locally. And then essentially there's a little bit there on hair course, and as I say, the presentation was prepared prior to the most recent story around the dog prevention order that they got. But you can see that there's a whole force operation, and it's also an operation that's in collaboration with neighbouring forces as well that suffer similar issues, and they quite regularly utilise local resources as well to support that. So that's a real key focus for us from a rural crime perspective. That's my presentation. I appreciate there might be questions and there might be things that people want to ask me in general terms. So I'll leave that up there because I won't actually, because I've figured that you might want to see the teams. So bear with me a second. Just close this down. There we go. That's better. So that was my presentation, Chair. But I appreciate there's going to be questions. So I'll leave it to you to moderate. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got you as well. Right, Councillor Morley first.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's really nice of you to come and present that. Last time we spoke actually was about the hair course. I couldn't believe how you had got it down, and I won't ask you how you did it because it's obviously part of your tactics, but being a farmer as well, I have noticed it. In fact, I haven't seen any around our land at all, anything, and I have spoken to other farmers and they haven't, so I'll have to commend you on what, and that's obviously got to help with other forms of crime because they're not casing the joint and things like that. So do you feel it's a trend that you can, well, not a trend, but is it something you can hopefully keep tabs on, as it were, really, going forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and I think I can go into some of the tactics. I think one of the key things for me, and it was a real eye-opener for me as a young officer, where I was dealing with a hair coursing incident, speaking to the farmer, I had no appreciation for the fact that hair coursing incident wasn't just about the hair coursing. I think they'd caused something like £50,000 worth of damage to the crops. So, there's a real significant impact outside of just, the wildlife element to it. And that was a real eye-opener for me when I was quite young in service. So it is something that Essex Police really do take seriously, and it is a priority for us both in Maldon and other rural areas. I think there has been a significant amount of improved tactics, and some of that's technology based. We've got a lot more access to drones. They've become a lot more affordable. We've got a significantly better working relationship with neighbouring forces in regards to intelligence sharing and other things like that. And as well, once, it's like anything, isn't it? I suppose once we take that tough stance and we set our stall out and it becomes known within a certain community that it's not necessarily, the hair coursing community, that it's not something that they want to come to Essex for, then they tend to go elsewhere. So I think it's something that we can hopefully maintain. There's certainly the infrastructure and the resources to maintain it. It's not a surge as a result of surge activity. It is a result of a long plan with sustained resources. So I'm confident that we'll continue to see it reduce.
Thank you.
Councillor Hurd, Councillor Morgan, and Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Chairman. Right? Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to continue with the praise. First of all, I'm very happy for police to tackle crime. That's your job. So well done, and thank you for that. And I certainly applaud the use of hats. As an ex-police officer myself, you always put your hat on. It gives you the authority and that. So
It protects your head.
Well done for that. I will say I've certainly seen more police about. Your visibility is very good. Only yesterday I saw officers walking in the high street. I even stopped to say, "Well done, nice to see you." So whatever you're doing is going well, and I'm really pleased. Not only that you're here tonight, but also at town council meetings, Sergeant Dalby is coming along, giving excellent presentation as well. So, as always, you have to be seen to be believed, and you are being seen. So that's good. That's the good bit. Okay, I'll try and cushion this one. So I've looked at the Maldon crime figures, and I know we always say that we're relatively low crime as compared to the whole of Essex, but we are still seeing rises in violence with injury, violence without injury, sexual offences, robberies, theft and vehicle offences. Of the 39 columns that there are there, 18 of them are green and 19 are red. That is an improvement though, because it used to be kind of a sea of red. So, and I know you can't just suddenly change it and it becomes green, but things are moving in the right direction, I do believe. So the questions that I've got then, so I've done those. It really relates to the bottom of the page, which is on the Maldon figures, and these are drug offences. Now it's saying that there were 15 drug offences in 2022, which I think is very, very low. That's trafficking, and 27 in 23. So bearing in mind we're only week 8 of 2023, but we seem to have nearly double the amount that there was in the whole of 2022. And as far as possession of drugs goes, 64 in 2022 and 73 in 2023. Again, we're only, unless you're taking it from a different quarter, that may well be the case. But what I would like to know is your stop and search figures. Are those drug figures really that low? Because the more you look for drugs, the more of a drugs problem you appear to have. If you don't look for it, then it's very easy to say we don't have a drugs problem here. So I'm just a little bit concerned about the low number of drug seizures or the sudden increase in it. I wonder if you could help me.
Thank you, Councillor. So the first thing I'll do is I'll clear up some ambiguity over the data, because I think it's not entirely clear. I look at this and interpret it and know exactly what it means because I see it every day. So essentially what it's saying there is that's the rolling 12 months from January 2021 to January 2022, and that's in the column 2022. And then the rolling 12 months from January 2022 to January 2023. So it's comparing 12 months to 12 months. So those 27 trafficking of drugs was it between January, or the 1st of February essentially, in 2022 to January this year. So it's not an 8-week period. The second thing I would say is you're absolutely right in regards to these. These figures are predominantly as a result of proactive police activity. So you're correct, if we're not looking for it, then these will be very low and we won't find it. And it's always a very subjective question around, well, if these are going up or down, does it mean we've got more or less of a problem? Because actually these could be going up because we're doing more around it and we're detecting it more. Similarly, if they're going down, it might not actually be a bad thing in that we're not doing as much. It might just be there isn't as much of a problem. So there is some subjectivity to these. What I can tell you from a local context is that drug possession and drug dealing, which is essentially the drug trafficking column, is a priority for not only Essex Police but for my team. And we have seen an increase in our policing activity and our policing response. Largely, but not exclusively, as a result of a very serious incident of violence prior to Christmas, just in one of the parks locally. So that incident, so whilst the criminal investigation is ongoing in relation to that, there is a proactive policing arm attached to that my team, particularly the Maldon Town Centre team, are leading on, around how we identify, proactively stop and then deal with individuals we believe linked to the issues that caused or a cause of that violence, which has resulted in some drug activity as well. So there is, on both points, you're correct. There has been an increase in police activities, so that's probably going to be why there's been an increase in the numbers. But I see that as a positive. I don't think that there's less or more of a drug issue in Maldon than there was 12 months ago. I just think, as I say, we've certainly increased the amount of activity that we're doing around it.
Okay, well, just to say, Chairman, thank you very much indeed for that. I have to say, overall, I'm pleased with the way the figures are. They are going the right way. I hope that they carry on to do that. So carry on doing what you're doing. Thank you.
Councillor Morgan, then Councillor Mays, and then Councillor Beale, and then Councillor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, thank you for the report. My question really concerns manning levels. I was at a presentation by the PFCC some weeks back, and during it, there seemed to be a suggestion that CPSOs were being either not recruited or indeed in some cases being sort of done away with as a method of saving money. So I'd be interested to know if that is a case. And also with regards to the manning level for the Maldon town, we're about, there's a, as you're probably aware, a very large housing development going on in Haybridge, which will considerably increase the sort of population there. Have the manning levels for the Maldon town station been set with that in mind? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. In answer to your first question, I am not aware of any reduction in community support officers. I think the last reduction in community support officers was in 2015, 2016, I think. I can assure you that we are continuing to recruit. We're not increasing numbers. We are recruiting to maintain numbers. And whilst there isn't a newly recruited community support officer at Maldon, I have at least one newly recruited community support officer on my team at Chelmsford. So there's no reduction in numbers. There's a maintaining of the level, but there's no increase of the current establishment of community support officers. In relation to resourcing numbers, there's a very complicated algorithm that is based around the census data, around how many numbers of police officers per 1,000 population. Obviously, we know that the census has recently been done in census terms. Whether there will be a change in the resourcing levels allocated to the Maldon districts as a result of the new census data when those figures are rerun, I honestly don't know. In relation to your direct question, I'm not aware of any consideration around an increase in resourcing numbers based on the new development, specifically in Haybridge. Any increase or reallocation of resourcing numbers within policing is predominantly done around the census data.
Right, so there could well be a shortfall for some period until such time as that.
Potentially.
Thank you.
Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, visibility is great. Spot on. And that includes speeding, because I have to declare that I was caught speeding. There we go. I know.
So have I.
Yeah, well, you know, they're doing their job, so that's really good to see. And they are all over the place, so it's not just on my regular routes, it's on other routes that I don't travel very often. This really brings me on to antisocial behaviour and the definition of what antisocial behaviour is with regard to the motor car, and in particular parking on pavements. It is the bane of my life. I open my inbox and I have a dozen emails about what are you going to do about parking on pavement. Obviously our SEP partners are not able to deal with it because we don't have the legislation there. I have sent emails and you have been very responsive. How can we stop it though? How can we stop it? Because they are belligerent people who are doing it time and time and time again, to the point where, and particularly in relation to my ward, which is the High Street and down the hill and along Causeway, I have people that have no other method of getting anywhere because people park on the pavements and they have to go into the road. Causeway is a very busy road. I have a school just off the High Street, very busy. People use the back road from the top of the High Street into the High Street. It's a bit of a cut through. Really, really difficult to deal with. And this is not just about getting to those that are doing it. They're doing it time and time again. They are regulars. More on Beacon Hill, both sides of the road. Dreadful. So we need to do something about it. We need to be proactive. I stop. I use my voice. and it goes away for a little while. Thank you. So it would be good to perhaps have something a little more proactive on that particular aspect. Stop and search. We get the figures, but we don't know, and I think we have spoken about this before, where, when, and what do you actually recover. That then informs us as to what the problem is with stop search. Nowhere in either report was there anything about modern slavery. It's only something that I've really recently, over the last 3 or 4 years, become more aware of. And I do have some concerns in the town about modern slavery. Yet I never seem to see very much reference to it other than policy documents on what we're supposed to do or going to do. But there are no figures. Is it a problem in this county, in this district, in this town? I don't know. It's like many things, domestic abuse. It's hidden, and that slightly concerns me. Which brings me on to women's safety, something that I always bang on about every single year, as you know, Spencer. And I'm very excited that we're actually now going to take that forward and make it more of a priority. Women are afraid to be women. We are afraid to be women now and walk around in safety, and we need to feel safe. Not me personally, but there are plenty of women out there who don't feel safe, women and girls, and won't walk about, even during the day, alone. And that can't be right. Not in Maldon. Maldon of all places. Croydon, Crime City. I wouldn't walk around in Croydon alone. But here we should be able to. And I don't understand why we're not. So the fact that we're doing something is great. So thank you very much.
Do you want to respond to that?
Thank you, Councillor. I'll try and remember all of that. So if I forget something or I miss something in my answer, please do let me know. So in relation to parking is a challenge, as we know, and it's not just a challenge for ourselves within policing, because it's not something that we have a legislative power in which to enforce, unless you're in the confines of London, where it is illegal to park on a pavement. We do have certain powers under other legislation around obstruction of a highway, which is as far-reaching as that's the legislation that we used predominantly for the protesters on the M25 and other trunk roads. So there are some things that we can do around it. I think the other issue is whether or not we're utilising our partners in SEP as well as we perhaps could be, and that's from a police perspective, and that conversation and those discussions. Because some of the parking on a pavement, whilst I appreciate if there's no double yellow or single yellow lines, they can't enforce, but if there are, they can. The challenge with obstruction of the highway is you're required to have to prove it to the criminal standard of beyond a reasonable doubt, which requires there to be no free passage beyond that vehicle or by the side of that vehicle. So it's got to block free passage, and that's at the discretion of the officer or the community support officer when they attend. That's not to say that we can't deal with it as an obstruction, but we need to make sure that we have evidenced it and we've got sufficient evidence to a criminal standard in order for it to be convicted at a court of law. I think there are things that we might be able to do, and I want to be very clear that we don't police parking, and we haven't got the legislation to police parking. And I don't think if the public were asked, they would want our police officers and our community support officers to exclusively do parking. And I think that we would all accept that. However, where we have persistent issues with businesses or persistent issues with individuals, and there's an element of it causing antisocial behaviour, then we do have the possibility of legislation under the Antisocial Behaviour Act that we can take action. Community policing, community protection warnings and community protection notices. So if you've got issues like that, there would have to be that antisocial link, because in itself, the parking isn't an antisocial act unless it is causing either something antisocial or it's the manner of its parking is antisocial. So there are options. They're not clear cut. There is no definitive police power for parking on a pavement outside of London. But it's something that I'm willing to explore with yourselves and my team to see how we can perhaps look to try and respond in a slightly more proactive way without getting to a position where we are the first ones from a policing point of view that is to deal with parking issues, which essentially we know SEP are the primary agency for that. I'm happy for my team to get involved and assist where we can and where it's appropriate, but we would need to be at the further end of the scale where it's become a real endemic and antisocial issue. That was the parking. I'm just trying to think what else there was now.
Stop search.
Stop search. Yes, as you're aware, Councillor, you and I and the members of the IAG are in discussion over the level of detail. I think that's on the agenda for the next IAG, isn't it?
Yes, it has been put on there now.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to provide whatever information we have within police systems because we're open and transparent to yourselves and to the IAG. I just need to know what it is that you want and how deliverable that is. Once I have that, that's what you'll get.
Brilliant. Thank you.
No worries. Sorry.
Modern slavery.
Modern slavery, yes. Right. So modern slavery is challenging in so much as you're right, it can be hidden. It can also be quite overt, but there are more than one types of modern slavery. So you've got modern slavery where you've got servitude within domestic addresses. You've got businesses that propagate it potentially more than others. There's all different types of modern slavery. I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that it may be one of those crimes that police and other agencies don't necessarily publicise their activity around too much because there's always that inherent risk to victims or other victims that might be associated with that particular endeavour. So we have to be careful about how we do communicate our work around modern slavery. And what I can do is assure you that there is work ongoing and that we do react to community information and intelligence around concerns that they may have of particular premises, addresses, I won't be able to give details in this forum, but I know that there's activity planned in the near future in regards to modern slavery, not necessarily in the Maldon district, but that I'm aware of. So it is something that we do tackle. It's something that forms part of our local tasking within police and with the Community Safety Partnership. So it is taken seriously, but I do take on board your comments around it being not as visible, but there are sometimes legitimate operational policing reasons why we can't be as vocal around that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think it was the fact that there was no reference to it whatsoever.
Right,
and
okay.
and actually, even if it's only a paragraph of, we do take it seriously. This is something that is ongoing and does happen everywhere. I think that was really where I was coming from. Thank you. The only other thing, that if I could come back, Mr. Chairman, is does the Chief Constable lobby at all regarding legislation for parking on pavements? SEP would do it and are happy to do it, but the legislation's obviously not there. We know that it exists in draft form, but for some reason it never seems to come forward. And sometimes it's lobbying further up the tree that would actually get it onto the statute books. Thank you.
Sorry, I was going to say my honest answer is, Councillor, I don't know if the Chief Constable's lobbies for it. I suppose the most appropriate person within the policing family that would lobby for that type of legislation would be the Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner.
Mr. Holmes, you wanted to answer the parking.
Well, obviously, just to add to what was said, really, obviously we work with the police and obviously the SET. It's been quite a while since the parking partnership were invited here, and it might be useful, perhaps in the October meeting, to come along because it may be something by then we could have had some discussions with SEP, and then we might be able to give you some bit more information. So if members are happy with that, I could send an invitation.
Thank you, Councillor Beale. You've forgotten now, haven't you?
Right, a couple of things. What was it? Well, with this, the modern slavery and whatever, I know that the police are doing something about it because I reported a situation down in Hillary Close, and I think it's the guys that work at the car wash in Haybridge, and the door's always left open, they don't shut it. So they either shut the door and it bounces open or whatever. And I noticed there was a couple of police cars down there, I think it was Saturday, and they screamed around like everyone was going to get raided, and I went, oh, something's happening. Well, it turned out they went into I think they actually went into the house, and on the strength of that, they then went down to the 2 car washes and raided them, I think. So yes, they are doing the stuff. I wouldn't argue with Councillor Mays, so I think she's as safe as houses.
Nor would I.
And also with the car parking, she either needs to move to London or Scotland, because it is law there not to park on the pavements, as the inspectors actually said. But I think the government are looking at parking on pavements as something to actually action. I mean, I've got a situation with my next door neighbour. He's got about 6 or 7 vehicles, and he's saying to me, well, can you park on the path? I said, no. You know, I don't know how many cars this guy can drive at once, but he's got like a whole fleet there, and he's upset a lot of neighbours, so that is really antisocial behaviour. And sometimes the refuge lorries really have a job to get through there. But there was that. I'd also like to compliment the, I don't know if you know him personally. Do you know Rosie?
Yes.
Not Jim, Rosie. Well, basically, that team is very, very approachable. They've had a lot of info or information from certain people. I don't want to say any names because it's all recorded, but they've had a lot of intel. Good. And as you'll know, there is a lot of drug activity down in Hillary Close and that, unfortunately. But there you go. You know, I get dizzy watching them go past. But at the end of the day, I think you are right that the reason that the figures have gone up with the drugs is because you're being more interactive. I honestly believe that. And what was the other things? I'd like to thank... There was a lady coming, I think she was in the police, I'm sure she was. She came to the luncheon club a couple of months ago and did a presentation, and that really, really went down well. I'm a volunteer there with the CVS, and they were talking about romance fraud, but I mean, most of them are about 100 years old, so that's probably never going to happen. But there's still hope for me, yeah, I know. But anyway, that went down really, really well. The romance fraud, you know, making sure you haven't got someone stood behind you, and it really, really did go down well. So thanks ever so much for that. It did go down well. And as I said, I go to quite a few of the community events, you know, like with Bruce with his Crime Stoppers, and I thought I'd mention that for you, Bruce. He does his Crime Stoppers, and we, you know, we're down the prom. They've been to the community at Haybridge Plantation Hall, and it is normally really, really well attended. And I have noticed the rural team about a lot, so that's good to see, because to me it's, you know, it is a deterrent in itself. I remember there was a young Romanian girl, I think it was, she's not with you anymore, but basically she was, is it a CPSA? Or PC, I don't know what it is. It's some sort of 4-syllable thing anyway. Yeah. But she was really, really good. You know, she mixed in the community. She got a lot of intel on different stuff going around. And that really does work. More so in the rural areas. I mean, I know Haybridge isn't classed as rural, because once we've had all these houses built, I'm going to apply for Haybridge to be a city. But at the end of the day, the CPSOs do a really, really good job because they're very, very visual. You know, they're on a bike, but possibly use them, if you can, using your regular officers to take them out or something, and then do, like you said, Hawthorne or something, because then it's a very visual thing, and then people start noticing that they can see people. And I think Councillor Hurd's right. Yeah, I've seen them up the town as well. I'm thinking, oh, that's good. I don't think they should be holding hands, but but yeah, I mean, it's really all positive. It's the fact that I can honestly see a lot more police about, and that is reassuring. Well, I mean, I actually witnessed an accident yesterday. I couldn't believe it. I was in the library car park, and some guy, I heard this big bang, and I looked up, and this guy had driven over the front wheel of one of these scooter things with a young girl. How the hell she never got hurt, I don't know. But she never ride that again. But yeah, I'm just really pleased the amount of visualisation out there now. And the community teams, they do a fantastic job. I mean, who's that? Who's the Les? Is it Les? The he was making soup at that one. You know, he put his hand to anything. But yeah, the community days really, really do work. They really, really do. So thank you for that.
In the olden days, we used to have village bobbies. Don't know what they're called now, but we don't see them anymore. We just see police cars go, wee, 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 and that's about it. I'm not very good at sounds. Councillor Spenceley, do you want to carry on?
Yes, thank you.
And then back to Councillor Hurd.
Yes, that's fine. Okay, so first of all, thank you for the report because that was really informative. And actually the thing with regard to hare coursing is also important, of course, for the welfare of the animals involved, as I have a rescued hare courser, and who's now 14 and has led a very nice life since she was rescued, because they often escape, as you probably know, and are very vulnerable to road accidents and all sorts. But moving on from that, Councillor Morley has asked the question I was going to ask about the Haybridge Garden suburb and whether or not we'd get extra policing for that, because it is a worry. And I think the census data, that's obviously going to be kind of a decade out of date by the time it gets looked at, so that is a concern. But one of the things I did want to ask you about here, and I noticed that there has been, which bucks a trend for the whole county, a little bit of a decrease in residential burglaries, which is great because that probably indicates really good work with residents. But one of the things, and I know it's like it in other places too, but when you look at the solve rates, and actually they're a little bit lower than the Essex-wide figures for burglaries, particularly residential, and they're always either under or just around 5%. And so I'm going to ask, I know it's been in the press quite a lot recently in terms of whether or not you actually attend residential burglaries, and having experienced myself having an elderly parent who's been burgled, and the absolute distress that can cause feeling safe in their own home. I just wondered if you could tell us what the Essex Police policy is on attending residential burglaries particularly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Obviously, I'm very aware of some of the other initiatives that might have been put in place in other police force areas around residential burglaries, and I've seen some of the headlines as a result of that. What I can do is I can assure you that residential burglaries on Essex Police's force plan, it's one of our priorities, it's one of the Chief Constable's priorities as well as the PFCC's. Practically speaking, I can assure you that we do attend every burglary. The only reason we wouldn't necessarily attend a burglary is if the homeowner's not present, which obviously, and then we would attend when they were. We also run, and to give you an illustration of this, when overnight, there's obviously we work 24 hours, but there's always a senior officer that works overnight as the force duty officer, and it's been me on occasion. If we've got a residential burglary that comes in overnight and we don't have all of our necessarily resources on, because you can appreciate it's overnight, so we do have a lot of resources on, but not the main body of resources all the time. If we can't allocate a unit to that, it comes to me to allocate a unit and to find someone as the senior officer on duty. And if we don't allocate a unit, or I don't find a unit, I know that I'm going to get a phone call from the Chief Constable the next day to find out why we haven't attended that. So I can guarantee you that dwelling burglaries are a real priority for Essex Police, and it is something that it translates operationally as well as it being on the force plan, as they all do. So no, it really is a priority.
Thank you for that.
Any more? Councillor Hurd, and then Councillor Mays.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to answer a previous question, I know that the force establishment is now 3,755 officers. That's 900 more from our lowest figure. But as I said to the Police and Crime Commissioner, it's okay to have those police officers. And as I said, the work that you're doing at the moment is right, and because those figures are turning green. But as has been raised, it's the solved figures that we want to see raised as well, Obviously that's really, once we've got the crime under control, we then need to look at how the solved rates are. That was just to clarify a further point. But my question is, there is a question. Street lights, and this may have something to do with the community safety partnership. The street light in the close that I live in hasn't been working for some weeks now, and it has plunged that area, because it's the only light there, into darkness. So even if these are reported, it does seem to take an age for Essex County Council to come along. So is there something that the Community Safety Partnership can do to speed up those requests? Because in fact there's 3 lights out in the road that I live in, and they don't seem to be being fixed. Personally, I haven't reported them personally, and one could argue, well, why haven't I? Yes, yeah. And I'll do that tomorrow.
Right.
But I have reported them in the past, and potholes, etc. But what I'd like to know is that something that the Community Safety Partnership can encourage the Highways Authority to do, because it does come under those priorities of road safety, even if it's just walking along the road.
Thank you, Councillor. I wish I had a positive response for you. Yes, we can encourage them to. One of the things that the County Council have committed to, and this is around the violence against women and girls agenda. One of the pieces of work which I spoke very briefly about in the report was Operation Minerva, whereby we have a data mapping tool which was produced by Nottingham Trent University, whereby we're looking at maps across the whole of Essex, including Maldon. We were looking at the Maldon maps on Monday, where there's areas of female victimisation. And I think one of the commitments from the County Council is if those areas are chosen as areas of concern, they'll fix the street lights more promptly in those areas. So that is a County Council commitment rather than a district one. Yes, we are, in my role, particularly with my Chelmsford hat on, I continuously lobby the County Council to get some lights fixed in the city centre. Some of them have taken a while to fix. But yes, it's something we're happy to lobby on. I'm not sure what response we'll get, but we're happy to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Herbert Protocol. I hadn't heard about it until today, and I think it's wonderful. It's probably better if you explain what it is rather than me, because I've only just found out about it. And I'm particularly enthused by it with my dementia awareness hat on and being vice chairman to the local Maldon dementia-friendly community. My question is actually, how many times do officers use this protocol? And how successful is it when it is used? Sounds brilliant.
Thank you, Councillor. Wasn't expecting that one this evening. I have to be honest.
Going to find out about it now.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to do it a very, very bad disservice, but I'll do my absolute best. So the Herbert Protocol, Chair and Councillors, is something that was put in place, not necessarily exclusively in Essex. It's something that was put in place across policing a little while ago, and it is a set of procedures and processes in order to improve our response and better support vulnerable people within the community who are more inclined that if they were to go missing, they would be of significant risk to themselves, i.e., elderly people or people who are vulnerable through mental illness or mental ill health, or who have dementia or similar type medical conditions, whereby they can become confused, disorientated or lost. So the Herbert Protocol was put in place, and essentially, in practicality, Councillor, we have missed per liaison or missing persons. I use them in that because missing persons liaison officers in each district, and they are the ones that generally do all the liaising with adult social care, the safeguarding teams. And we can utilise the Herbert Protocol by putting police records. So we have an already built up profile of an individual, so that we can make sure that if that person was to be reported missing, we would know what medication they need, where they likely to places they might likely go, and also anything that we might assist us in locating them. So we've already got a photograph of them that we can do a media release really quickly, things like that. But there's also other things that we can put in place as well in partnership with some of our colleagues in social care, which is tracker devices that they can be given and wear, or on their phone or on their person. It can be a challenge because obviously they've got to have it on them, but I am aware of. No, I'm afraid not. But no, I am personally aware of instances where vulnerable adults have been located by police or family members very quickly as a result of the steps that are taken around the Herbert Protocol. In fact, it's one of the first questions we have. If we have that type of missing person reported to us, one of the first questions we have is, are they on the Herbert Protocol? And if they are, do we have any means with which we can try and trace their location quickly? Similarly, officers can refer people into the process, as can partners in social care. So if we have someone that's reported missing for the first time, because as we know, unfortunately, some of these conditions can take really quickly and come on quite fast, then we can refer people into that process if we have that initial missing episode.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. And the last, or just to come back, is do officers locally, I would hope at all levels, have formal, whether it's an hour session or whatever, to become a dementia friend?
We do significant amount of training around awareness of mental health issues and vulnerabilities within the community as part of our ongoing continuous professional development. Dementia awareness, we do have a dementia awareness programme within Essex Police as one of the support groups, and they do regular talks and regular training sessions. We also have it, I would suggest from memory, it's not a specific bespoke training package to dementia only, it's part of a wider vulnerable adult package that we have that is taught and is part of our not only initial training but part of our continuous professional development.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lovely. Thank you.
Councillor Morley.
Just to say, I think that's a brilliant idea. I had a grandfather went missing. He was had a bit of dementia and just couldn't find him, and we found him on the reservoir at Leia. But I take your point. If you don't know where they are, if you could just give them a little tag or a bracelet or something, it'd be marvellous. I think it's brilliant.
Anyone else?
Well, only to say this is not really on the agenda, Chairman. I mean, it's nice to know, but it's not really on the agenda. So can we move on?
Councillor Beale.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just me being nosy, actually, because that's what I do. With the, it just amazes me, because I don't know why. I suppose now I'm retired, I need to know everything. So I listen to a lot of news. It's amazing how many it really surprised me how many young people go missing. There don't seem to be many weeks at all where there's someone just disappeared, never to be heard of again. I mean, it totally amazes me. And I don't know, I think Councillor May's right about the dementia thing. There is something they can wear, I think, and it basically, they say push this, and then it actually gives them the phone number. So that's the way they can do it. If you find someone that doesn't really know what they're, it's pretty obvious that they don't know what they're doing or where they are. I think there's a button they do, and it actually does tells them who the person is, and it also gives them the phone number.
Thank you.
And the other thing is, there seems to be a lot. Have you found since the lockdown thing that you've got a lot more domestic abuse and the coercive manipulation thing or whatever? because people couldn't get out at the time?
Thank you, Councillor. The question will be, the answer will be in two parts. The first part around the coercive and controlling behaviour, that's new legislation, so there's very little for us to track with it historically because it's not something we would have recorded previously. So when I say it's new, in legislative terms, it's relatively new. So it's very difficult for me to say that it's more prominent because it's not something we recorded before. I think it's always been there. I think it's just now that we are starting to record it, I think we'll be able to track it a little bit better over coming years as to whether or not it's going up or down. In relation to domestic abuse, lockdown and the times that we had during the relative COVID lockdowns was a strange time in policing in so much as it did some strange things to our crime data and obviously the whole society changed almost overnight for a period of time. What I can say around domestic abuse is that Essex Police has actually seen 2 months of reduction in the amount of domestic abuse that we've had reported. So for the first time in a very long time, I think the first time in about 6 or 7 years perhaps. No, I don't think it is. I think that there's a real significant focus across Essex Police and other partners around tackling domestic abuse, and I think that that's starting to bear fruit. And I think ultimately, whilst we're not suggesting that we're all going out for tea and medals or anything like that, it's just we have the data is there. We are getting less domestic abuse reported to us and less domestic abuse recorded, and there's so much work going on around it in Essex Police and amongst other partners as well. So I think that what we're seeing is that some of the longer term benefits of that significant approach being taken across statutory authorities in relation to domestic abuse.
Right, we've had several accidents in Maldon Road, Latchington. Sometimes police cars come from Harlow, all over the place, but not from Maldon. And the other night we had one and they came from Stanway.
Chairman, a point of order again. This is really not on. This is a crime and disorder committee, and I think we should move to the next business, if you don't mind.
I think you're rather rude to talk to the chairman like that. It's not on.
I'm just saying it's not on. It's not on the. It's not on the. It's not on there.
Well, several people who ask questions that aren't on the agenda, and this is about crime and statistics, all the rest of it, accidents, all the rest of it. Anyway, I was informed that the police cars either come from Chigwell or Stanway for the whole of Essex. Is that correct?
Thank you, Chair. So we have roads policing bases that work at Stanway and Chigwell. So dependent on the nature of the incident, we will send our most appropriate response.
Okay.
So there may be instances when it comes to road traffic collisions where the most appropriate response to attend that is a roads policing vehicle because they have specialist equipment and training. So they would come from Chigwell as a base. They might not have been in Chigwell, but that's where their base would have been. Because what we don't want to be in a position where is we might send an officer from Maldon to a crash on a fast road where they're not equipped with or trained to do it.
I've got that. I was just astounded that it took 20 minutes to go from Stanway to Latchington. And the risks involved in that's all.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Right, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Any other business? No, there isn't. Thank you very much, Mr. Ballard, and thank you very much, Mr. Spencer, and thank you very much, Mr. Richard Holmes. I now close the meeting for Mr. Hurd's benefit at 14 minutes past 9.